My name is Elsa Leeson. We are recording this meeting. I am a Planner 1 with Adams County, and I'm joined by a host of other Adams County staff today. So this is our second public outreach meeting concerning multiple code amendments to the Adams County Development Standards and Regulations, which have been requested by the Board of County Commissioners. So as a reminder, these proposed code amendments will apply to unincorporated Adams County, and proposed overlays will apply specifically to sub-area plan boundaries. If you have any questions during the meeting, please feel free to drop those in the chat, or if you would prefer, you can email your comments and questions to Layla Bajalan at the email provided on the screen. We will also have polls throughout this meeting to kind of gauge some different things with the uses and overlays that we're proposing. And we will also have an opportunity for Q&A at the end of this presentation. And again, we hosted our first public outreach meeting in June, and we will be going into our draft regulations tonight in our second meeting. So at a study session with the Board of County Commissioners on May 11th, staff was given the direction to implement the vision of our long-range plans by creating zoning overlays for the plan boundaries. The 4 plans we're looking to include are the Welby Plan, the Federal Boulevard Framework Plan, the TOD and Rail Station Area Planning Guidelines, and the Clear Creek Valley TOD Plan. We were also given the direction to change the use by right allowances of outdoor storage in the Industrial 2 and Industrial 3 zone districts, create a mixed-use zone district, add tiny home village and safe parking regulations as new uses to the development standards, and finally, to empower the comp plan and criteria of approval for land use cases. Many of these efforts are priorities of the Board of County Commissioners, and we were actually granted an implementation planner, Carl Onsager, who is with us tonight, to help implement all these proposed amendments. So staff will be adding compliance with the comp plan as a criterion of approval to many of our land use cases. Currently, the county is working on advancing Adams, which is an update to the 2012 Imagine Adams Comprehensive Plan that would provide a vision for the development looking into 2040. The adoption of this plan will be in early 2022. Compliance with this document will ensure that development is compliant with the 2040 vision for Adams County. Adding in this criteria also ensures that our long-range plans are being considered and development is compliant with their specific visions. So the county will be pursuing code amendments to change the use by right allowances of outdoor storage for the I2 and I3 zone districts. So currently the I2 and I3 zone districts allow for outdoor storage in excess of 100% of the building area by right if it does not exceed 80% of the lot or 10 acres, whichever is less. If it does exceed that amount, a conditional use permit is currently required. Staff is recommending that the 80% threshold should be reduced in the I2 and I3 zone districts by direction of the county commissioners. In the I2 district, outdoor storage would be permitted as a use by right if it is less than 25% of the entire lot or less than 3 acres. For I3 zone districts, outdoor storage would be permitted as a use by right if it does not exceed 50% of the entire lot or less than 6 acres. In both zone districts, outdoor storage in excess of 100% of the building area would be allowed with a conditional use permit. A conditional use permit requires 2 public hearings. It requires that the use be compatible with the area and with these regulations. It would require compatibility with the comp plan and sub-area plans, and a neighborhood meeting would be required. So we would like to do a quick poll to see kind of a gut check with these numbers. So a poll will appear on your screen, and you will have the opportunity to tell us whether these new thresholds feel too strict, not strict enough, or just right. All right, thank you so much. So along with adjusting the allowances for outdoor storage, we are also proposing to modify the definition of outdoor storage. As you can see, this is mostly to simplify the definition, as it is quite lengthy and confusing. This new definition also clarifies, we added a temporal element to clarify that any of these things that are kept outdoors for more than 72 hours are considered outdoor storage. So next, we will be adding a mixed-use zone district. As Layla mentioned in the last meeting, the creation of a mixed-use zone district was called for by the 2012 Imagine Adams Comprehensive Plan and many of our sub-area plans. Additionally, the county does not currently allow for mixed use by right. In 2020, we added mixed use as a use in the development standards that required a conditional use permit, and it is only conditionally allowed in the C5 zone district. So this new mixed use zone district will not only allow mixed use by right, but it will also create flexibility in our approach to land uses and enhance the character of Adams County's commercial corridor. Only properties that front an arterial or collector road will be eligible to rezone to the mixed use zone district in order to protect the character of residential neighborhoods. Additionally, there will be reduced setbacks and parking in these zone districts in order to create a more vibrant street front that is welcoming and safe for pedestrians. Many of the standards will mirror the C5 zone district while allowing for a greater variety of uses. A site plan approval will be required and can run concurrently with the rezoning of the property. As we shared last time, we were given direction to pursue the creation of tiny home villages as a use in our development standards. This use would provide flexibility in both building form and site design requirements for providers of transitional housing for people who are experiencing homelessness or at risk of being homeless. This use would be allowed with a conditional use permit in residential zone districts. Again, a conditional use permit does require 2 public hearings. It requires that the use be compatible with the area and these regulations. It would require compatibility with the comp plan, sub-area plans, and a neighborhood meeting would be required. So currently we are proposing a minimum lot size of 1/2 acre with a density of 1 home per 2,100 square feet. That's about 10 tiny homes at minimum. A responsible agent would be required for both the maintenance and the supervision of the site. Parking would be provided. Common facilities such as showers, bathrooms, kitchens would be provided, and no outdoor storage would be allowed, but private storage such as sheds or garages would be provided. So this picture shows the beloved tiny home village in Denver, and these are becoming popular across the country and have been incredibly helpful to people who are transitioning to more permanent forms of housing. So at the moment, we are going to take a poll about what you think maybe the biggest consideration will be in regulating tiny home villages. And you can choose as many as apply. So that poll should appear on your screen. Just take a second if you'd like to, and then, oh, and we're done. Great. Thank you so much. All right, so next, another use that we will be adding to our development standards under direction of the commissioners is safe parking sites. We know that many of our houseless neighbors are sheltering in their cars, and we want to provide a safe place for them to do so. This use would be regulated to provide safe sites at existing commercial and institutional uses that are compatible with these activities. It would be considered an accessory use to these existing institutional and commercial uses, and it would be permitted through the administrative review process. So this would require a site plan and site management plan from the responsible agent who will be overseeing the site, and it will require a community meeting. At this time, we're proposing a minimum lot size of 1 acre, parking on approved surfaces only, so just in parking lots. And we would be providing setbacks to provide for appropriate distance from adjacent residential uses. We are proposing that the hours of operation be between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. with quiet hours between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. And hygiene and waste facilities would be provided by the responsible agent for those using the safe parking sites. So at this time, we're going to ask a similar question about what you think the biggest considerations for safe parking sites will be. That poll will appear on your screen. We'll just take a couple seconds to answer that. Awesome, thank you. All right, so next we have a few overlay districts to share with you. As I mentioned, we are adding 4 new overlay districts, 2 of which will be of interest to the Welby community. As a reminder, overlay districts are an additional level of requirement to the underlying zone district. So for example, if a property is zoned I-1 and it's within the Welby sub area, it would be subject to both the I-1 zoning and the regulations of the Welby overlay. If there are more than 1 overlay present, they all apply. And these overlays help to apply specific standards to an area. In this case, we'll provide the opportunity for incentives and will guide development that is in line with our sub-area plans. Again, these overlays are not county-wide, they're specific to the plan area, in this case, the Welby sub-area plan. All right, so the Welby sub-area overlay is recommended by staff to implement the 2014 Welby sub-area plan. The Welby area is approximately 4 square miles and is generally located north of I-76, east of I-25, south of 88th Avenue, and west of the South Platte River. Welby currently contains a mix of uses that include single and multifamily residences, commercial businesses, agriculture, and industrial. The plan was put in place to help provide a vision for Welby, to provide compatibility between the diverse uses as Welby grows, all while honoring the rich history of the area. The Welby plan splits the sub-area into 3 areas that all have unique visions. In addition to the goals and policies, the Welby plan calls for the county to develop regulations specifically designed for the Welby area. So North Welby is primarily residential in character with limited commercial along Washington Street. This area does contain a portion of the half-mile buffer from the original Thornton 88th light rail station, and it includes Rotella Park. The vision and future land use for the area is mostly urban residential and mixed-use neighborhood, which would allow for some mixed-use development, especially along major corridors. East Welby is shown in green on this image and consists of mostly underutilized agricultural and industrial lands. This area does contain a portion of the half-mile buffer from the original Thornton 88th light rail station and the Commerce City 72nd station. East Welby is expected to see the most change within Welby. The future land use consists mostly of mixed-use employment, urban residential, and mixed-use neighborhood. Lastly, South Welby is shown in red on this map and consists of a mix of limited residential, industrial, and agricultural properties. This area has seen significant change in the past years, and ensuring that the new development is compatible with the existing development is a priority within this area. Having mostly a mixed-use employment future land use, the vision for this area is mostly light industrial with some residential options where existing residential is established. So again, the purpose of this overlay is to implement many of the goals of the Welby sub-area plan and to enhance the Welby area. So first, we are proposing to allow for multiple permitted uses on one property, also known as the beehive concept. All uses must be associated with one use that is already permitted in the zone district, and the property must front a state highway, arterial, or collector road. So Boyer's Coffee is a great example of this kind of development that already exists in the Welby area. They have a roastery, a coffee shop, and they run a retail store, all on the same property. So that is what we're getting at with the beehive concept. Second, we are proposing many different standards that would improve the pedestrian environment. Standards will require commercial and multifamily buildings to face adjacent streets, connecting walkways, parks, or similar outdoor spaces. No off-street parking will be permitted between the street and the front or side of the building to create a more friendly, safe environment for pedestrians. Creating a sense of place will be a huge priority. We will require enhanced landscaping and open space between sidewalks and buildings, and we will require the provision of what we're calling elements that will pay homage to the unique character of Welby. So these elements will be part of a larger branding effort to bring a more recognizable sense of place to Welby. You might recognize this is an existing pocket park along 73rd Avenue. And this is what we're talking about when we're talking about providing elements that pay homage to Welby's history. So next, staff is proposing that all new industrial development within Welby will be restricted to mixed-use employment future land use properties. Specifically, new industrial development should be clean indoor uses. The mixed-use employment properties are designated by this lavender color on the map, primarily in South Welby. New industrial development will be prohibited in North Welby, and that is in order to preserve the residential character of those neighborhoods. Lastly, for properties that are zoned I2 and I3, outdoor storage limitations would be reduced to the allowances for the I1 district. Additional landscape buffer requirements would apply to new commercial and industrial uses when they are constructed adjacent to existing residential or agricultural uses in the Welby area. So currently, new commercial uses are required to have a buffer yard C, which is 15 feet minimum buffer yard width, with 2 trees per 80 linear feet of lot line and a fence. Staff is proposing to add 5 feet of additional buffer yard and 2 trees per 80 feet of lot line. For new industrial uses, they currently require a buffer yard D, which is 15 feet of minimum buffer yard with 3 trees per 60 linear feet and a fence. Staff is proposing to add 5 feet to that and 3 trees per 60 feet of lot line. So as mentioned, parts of Welby have a wide range of land uses present, and this modification would provide for greater buffering between more intense uses such as industrial and less intense uses such as residential or agricultural. Lastly, as I mentioned, both the North and East Welby areas are designated as urban residential and mixed use neighborhood on the future land use map. So for this reason, staff is recommending to provide incentives for more residential uses along major corridors and for mixed use development. These incentives would guide development more towards some of the active town center type uses that are desired for the North and East Welby areas. So with that, we are going to give another poll on this Welby sub area overlay, and we'd love to know what considerations you think will be most important for the Welby sub area overlay. So take just a second to respond to the poll on your screen. Okay, we just closed that poll. Thank you so much for participating. And we'll move on to the TOD overlay. So staff is recommending a new TOD overlay to implement both the TOD and rail station planning guidelines and the Clear Creek Valley TOD plan. These plans were adopted in 2007, 2009 respectively, and provide guidance for planning considerations for our 6 station areas within and near unincorporated Adams County. We know that development typically follows when transit is introduced to an area, and our intent is to implement the standards we have already adopted through an overlay district. For those of you that might not know, TOD stands for transit-oriented development, and it is a planning approach that calls for high-density, mixed-use business residential neighborhood centers to be clustered around transit stations and corridors. So here you can see the location of each of our 6 transit stations in and near unincorporated Adams County. So this overlay would apply to properties that are within that half-mile distance from each transit station And these are highlighted by the buffer on the map. That's going to be that dark blue line around each transit station. So this chart shows the zoning characteristics of the properties within unincorporated Adams County that also fall within the half-mile station buffer areas. So as you can see, the majority of holdings within station areas are zoned residential and PUD, but there's also a significant amount of industrial zone land as far as land area goes. So previously we adopted a TOD zone district. However, no properties have rezoned to TOD at this time. The TOD overlay implements many similar standards, as you can see on this chart. However, this is not a rezoning to TOD. Properties will maintain their zoning in addition to the TOD overlay standards. There are a few differences though to note. Outdoor storage would still be allowed in the TOD overlay, and increased hydro density would only be allowed through an incentives program with the county. So again, we're going to take a moment to poll you and hear about what you think the biggest considerations will be as we put together this TOD overlay. So take a moment to respond. You can choose as many selections as you would like. All right, thanks so much. So that concludes our overview of our draft amendments. We will have the physical copies of these drafts on our website in early August, and you will be able to access them on the link provided here. Once we've received and incorporated public comments, we will host a study session with the Board of County Commissioners in late August. That is open to the public. Then we will send these drafts to all relevant referral agencies for comment. Tentatively, these drafts will go before the Planning Commission in October and to the Board of County Commissioners in November. And we encourage you to stay involved with this process and provide your feedback. So you can provide comments, questions, or concerns to Layla at the email address provided here. And if you're interested in the overlays being proposed in other parts of the county, please join us for our countywide update meeting this Thursday. We'll also be on Zoom at 6 p.m. So thank you again for joining us tonight, and we will take some time to answer some of your questions.
All right, so our first question, and I might ask Joe, if you don't mind, I can unmute you and ask your question. I'm a little unclear as to what proposals you're talking about. So you're allowed to speak if you would like to unmute yourself.
Hi, yeah, thank you. We were just wondering when you would expect a lot of these proposals to be implemented. So for example, when would people expect to see tiny home villages in the community if that was something that was agreed upon? Do you have like a goal date? I remember hearing something about 2040, but I don't know if that's like the date that you would expect that to be implemented. That's what I was looking for.
Okay, yeah, thanks. That helps. So with respect to tiny home villages, I think, like I mentioned in the chat, we're just allowing it to be a use. There is no county initiated tiny home village in the works. We do have Paulo Diaz on the call who might be able to speak a little bit more to it. I don't think that we have anything lined up, but there are discussions with some providers of tiny home villages who are interested in potentially developing one in the county, but we don't have anything currently in the works. And then as to the process, to answer the second part of your question, then I'll pass it over to Paulo. But if someone were to come to the county after these regulations are adopted in early November, we hope, they would have to go through a lengthy public process. There would be a neighborhood meeting required. We require notification of property owners, probably in this instance within 1,000 feet, property owners and residents. They would have to submit an application. We would take that application and send it out to those same residents to ask for public comments. We send it out to referral agencies, water districts, school districts, our public works department. And then there would be 2 public hearings, one before our planning commission and one before our board of county commissioners. So there would be a lot of public vetting. We want to make sure we get this right. And that's why our commissioners have at least want to take this first step to allow the use, but in a very controlled manner. And so that's the attempt that we're trying to take here, but I'll pass it over to Paulo to maybe address the other side of that.
Yeah, Jen, I think you said it well. You said to allow the use, but still doing so in a controlled manner. So to your point, thanks for highlighting the process, Jen, as it is hopefully approved, like all these text amendments in early November. We are not identifying locations. We know that there are partners who are interested in hopefully building a tiny home village here in Adams County. However, there is still a process that they would need to go through for public approval for that. But we are not sitting there trying to think of how we want to build a tiny home in this particular neighborhood or this particular neighborhood. That should be up to the operator, who will go through that process and go through the public process and then try to get that permitted. But it won't run through Adams County trying to initiate that.
All right, thanks. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. I still didn't hear a date, so it sounded pretty vague, but.
Yeah, and I think the reason why you didn't hear a date is because there really isn't one, because I think, I mean, it won't be before November, right? Because that's when it's going in front of the Board of County Commissioners to approve the text amendments. And then after that, even if somebody did approach us in November, it would still take a lot of time to go through the whole public process of going through Planning Commission, Board of County Commissioners, public hearings, neighborhood meetings, things like that. So even then, it's well after November, if that should even happen.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Jen, is there anything else that you would like to add to that?
Nope, I think that covers it. I think it's really just taking that first step into allowing the use at all, because they're currently prohibited. So I think really this is the first step. We want to, dip our toe into that water and slowly ease in a very controlled way, and definitely have some backstops, public process. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And I think there could be opportunities in the future to revise that process, but I think this is where we're starting. Want to make sure that we have the ability for the commissioners to evaluate each new proposed location on a case-by-case basis. And if there's anyone else who has a question, you can put it in the chat, or we don't have terribly many people here, so if you want to raise your hand, I can unmute you so you can ask your question. So we'll be here in case you think of anything. All right. Well, like I think you guys heard from Ella before, we're doing a number of these meetings this evening. This was number 2. We're going to have an additional 2 this evening. You're welcome to stick around. It's going to be in the same meeting link. We've got one starting at 6 and then one starting at 7. So feel free to hang out. It's generally the same presentation. We're targeting different stakeholder groups, one being the Welby area, one being the Federal Boulevard corridor, and then one specific to the transit-oriented development areas in the county. And again, as mentioned, there is going to be another public meeting this coming Thursday, same Zoom link. It's going to be advertised more to the general public on all the social media, including Twitter and Instagram and all that. So hopefully you guys are able to attend that as well. Again, very similar presentation, similar polling questions. So, just let us know if you have any questions. We did get a question about tiny home villages. Is it going to be privately owned? I don't think that's something that we're planning on regulating. We're just allowing the use itself. I think it's going to be, it's not something, again, as Paulo mentioned, it's not going to be county initiated. It's not going to be county owned. It's something that the intent is for it to provide housing to people transitioning out of homelessness. So we're looking at likely nonprofits. Where they choose to put those locations, they're going to have to come to an agreement with a property owner. That's a whole different thing. That's not something that the county is looking to regulate. That's not something we regulate with any other type of land use. And then I will unmute Joe again. So you're able to unmute.
Hi, we were curious what the polling, like how that was going to play a role in the decisions being made.
Yeah, good question. So I think we're generally just getting some feedback here. We want to see what's important to the community. We are going to take that and take particularly, those multiple choice type questions and try to focus more on those as we're moving forward. It didn't look like folks were too interested in parking maximums. So that might be something that we don't really spend a lot of time on or don't necessarily propose in this round. But other things like preserving neighborhood character, that's clearly very important. So that is something that we're going to spend more time on and try to focus on and figure out the best way to do that from a planning perspective. We're also going to take this information and present it to our commissioners because I think that they're going to be very interested to hear what the community has to say. I know that these sound like very generic questions, but it'll at least provide us some guidance in the direction where we're headed in the next couple of weeks before we present to the commissioners. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Yep. All right, anyone else? Who would control water and sewer taps for tiny homes? So the county doesn't provide water or sewer services. We just ensure that all proposed new development has water and sewer services. We provide it, or we request it at the time of building permit or development application. So that's not something, again, we have control over, but we do regulate that aspect. We do require that there's proof that water and sewer is being provided, but we don't regulate the provision, if that makes sense. All right. Well, I'm going to end the meeting and stop recording. But again, if you guys have any questions, we'll be around for a little while. Feel free to put them in the chat. Feel free to email Layla. I'll put her email address and other information in the chat as well. And as well as the website that we're going to be updating with everything. So, and again, you're more than welcome to hang out with us for the next couple hours. We've got 2 more 1-hour meetings to go this evening. So thanks for coming. We really appreciate it.